Crazy story time about the girl that my dad was having an affair with. So a little background information. My mom and my dad had been married for 10 years, and they had 3 children. Me, who's the oldest, I'm 16, and then my 2 younger sisters. Well, since I was 12 years old, I've lived with my grandma because of some personal issues that went on at home. Well, because I lived with my grandma, I barely ever saw my family because she lived like an hour away. So I was never in any family photos or anything like that. Well, when I was 15, my dad started coming to my grandma's every Friday and taking me out for pizza. And I thought it was because he just wanted to spend time with me. Well, a few months after he started taking me out for pizza every Friday, I found it really odd that he was getting a hotel for the whole weekend and only seeing me on Fridays. So I had talked to my grandma about it. So my grandma told me that he was having an affair. And she said that she didn't care because she absolutely despised my mom. I didn't tell my dad that I knew because I just thought that it would cause issues between us. Well, the next Friday, he came up and we went to the pizza place like for part 2 about the girl that my dad was having an affair with. So like I said, a few weeks later, on a Friday, he takes me out for pizza again. Mind you, we go to the same pizza place every single Friday. Well, we sit down, we're waiting for our pizza, and I notice that there's this girl who keeps staring at me. And I'm like brushing it off, thinking that she's just one of those girls who has an RBF, resting bitch face. So once we were done eating, my dad went to pay. But the pizza place that we were at, they only accepted cash and not card. My dad had to go to the bank, which was like 2 doors down, so it really didn't matter. As soon as he got up and walked out that door, the girl who was staring at me the whole time came straight over and sat down where he was sitting. I'm like, hi. And she just starts going off on me, but not so everybody could hear. She's like, what the fuck is your name? Like, is he cheating on me? Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm his daughter. She said, no, you're not. He showed me pictures of his daughters before. Like I said before, I wasn't in any family photos. Like for part 3. Part 3 about the crazy ass girl that my dad was having an affair with. So like I said, she comes over, she sits down. She thinks she's confronting me about being just some random girl that my dad's cheating on her with. And then like I had said earlier, I was not in any family photos because I had lived with my grandma for years. So she was like, oh, like, no, he showed me pictures of his kids and stuff like that. So because she thought that I was lying, she went up and tried to fight me. But I grabbed this bitch by her hair and I fucking dragged her. And of course, while I'm beating the shit out of her, my dad walks in. It's like, oh my God, what are you doing to her? Let her go, blah, blah, blah. Everybody else is freaking out at this point. We get kicked out. The cops get called. She goes to jail because originally she put her hands on me and I decided to press charges, even though my dad begged me not to. So then I confronted him about the fact that he only came up once a week to spend one Friday with me, but he got a hotel and spent the whole weekend with her. So now I still live with my grandma. I don't see my dad anymore. He's still having an affair with this girl. I'm still really pissed off about it, so I kind of just want to tell my mom what he's doing.
My boyfriend has a longtime female friend who's clearly into him and I don't know what to do. This is gonna sound like the typical insecure girlfriend, but I promise it's not like that. My boyfriend and I have been together for over 6 months and he's really great. He has a friend that he's had for years who is a girl. Normally, I'm not the type to be all like, you're not allowed to hang out with a single girl alone, but I'm considering telling my boyfriend that he's not allowed to hang out with this girl alone. This girl is obviously so into him and she definitely wants me to know she's coming for him. She keeps saying stuff like, you don't know him like I do yet. Or, we used to go to that place together all the time long before you guys started dating. She also had cute pet names for him and I didn't like it, and as soon as I heard it, I told my boyfriend I didn't like it and he made her stop. Oh my gosh, Josh, remember when we went on a hike, just the 2 of us? That was the best day. I asked her straight up if she was into him and her response pissed me off. She was like, I know it's intimidating how close he and I are, but don't worry, you're the girlfriend, I'm just the friend, right? With a smug smile on her face. I got so mad, but I couldn't talk to my boyfriend about it. I want to tell him to cut her out of his life so bad, but I don't know if I can do that. My boyfriend's dad passed away 2 years ago with a heart condition. He told me that his dad was his best friend growing up, so it hit him really hard. That's why he says she's like a sister to him. That's why I don't know what to do. I already asked him to set boundaries, like she can't text late at night or come over to his place unannounced all the time and not interrupting our alone time. He was the only family my boyfriend had. Apparently, this girl really helped him get through it. She apparently was there for him throughout the whole thing. My boyfriend doesn't realize that she's into him, and I kind of don't blame him on that because all of her flirts are subtle enough that he doesn't realize, but enough to get me riled up. I know my boyfriend isn't into her at all and he's completely friend-zoned her, but it's still so frustrating. I hate to admit it, but she's so good at getting under my skin and I don't know what to do. I really need some advice.
Story time about this guy who was harassing his ex-girlfriend at the bar I worked at. I work in a sports bar and grill in a reasonably small town. We're a popular hangout for local college kids as one of the only spots with a full bar and some decent grub. I love this because contrary to popular belief, young people are usually better tippers and just all around more pleasant to their servers than the older crowd. One drawback though is they're certainly more dramatic than the older crowd. With these college kids, it's often either the best thing to spot your friends out and they get loud and excitable, or there's some rift between the groups and they get loud and excitable. For example, we had a college-age couple that came in a bunch almost every weekend. Then they split up. I see the guy from time to time getting loaded with his buddies, but the girl stopped coming in altogether. I figure she only came because he was bringing her here. On Friday, we were having ladies' night and she comes in with a small group of girls. There were maybe 5 altogether. They sat down at a booth and ordered some cheap drinks and kept to themselves. Fast forward like half an hour, this guy and his buddies come in. Without realizing, they take seats at the bar directly adjacent to this girl in her booth. I didn't recognize them as the couple at first, but the guy spotted her and let's just say it became immediately clear who left who. Despite what he said, he started in with all these passive-aggressive and loud comments to his pals about how glad he was he dropped that fat bitch who was weighing him down, looking desperately over his shoulder hoping that she'd overhear him. She didn't, or if she did, she ignored him. He kept going with the insults for another moment or two before he got into some derogatory stuff about her breast specifically, and the bartender told him he had to keep it down because he was bothering people. The night went on and all parties involved got more drunk, his a lot more than hers. But she and her friends ignored him. Eventually, they got up to go dance and he quickly follows. I was lingering around, bringing drinks to people and keeping tabs to be sure nothing escalated. This poor girl, he was really tearing into her. The especially psycho thing is he alternated between insulting her and begging her to take him back. You fat ugly bitch, I never wanted to be with you in the first place. I was with all my exes while we were together. And you'll never do better than me, so you should take this chance while you have it. We can start over. I forgive you. From this pathetic guy in the same string of conversation. She kept blowing him off and her friends who were taking notice kept breaking it up and relocating themselves. I was seconds away from having our bouncer spring him, but he seemed to cool off. However, that only lasted until she came to the bar where he followed her, but something amazing happened next. Part 2 of the guy who was harassing his ex-girlfriend at the bar I work at. So it only lasted until she came to the bar, not anywhere near him mind you, to get herself another drink. He starts saying all this stuff about, you think anyone will ever want you like that? You can have me or you can have nothing. And I don't even want you. You were the worst decision I ever made. I don't even know why I'm giving you this chance. And on, until he's cut off by, what are you saying to my girl, bro? A towering guy sat down, put his arm around her and was like, sorry I'm late, babe. Practice kept dragging. Can I help you, son? He was 10 times more put together, better spoken, better dressed, way less effing sad or terrifying than the guy who'd been bothering her all night. The pathetic one was so drunk at this point that he didn't recognize he was outmatched and started launching into this incoherent screaming of, she's a skank, whore, B, and you better not touch her cause she's mine. To which the towering, calm guy stood up, took his jacket off and said, without raising his voice, oh, so we have a problem? This guy's friends noticed the situation and came to collect him at this point, just before one of our staff could intervene. But this new guy followed him over to his friends. He got right in his face and said, if you have a problem with her, then you have a problem with me, so I think it's time to bounce. Drunk guy wasn't having any of it, but his friends were smarter, or at least more sober, and knew they didn't want trouble. Once they were gone, new guy went back over to his girl and says, hi, nice to meet you. My name's Isaiah. Sorry to get all involved like that. I hope I didn't overstep. It's just, I could not listen to another second of that. Seriously, that guy is scary. That's why I went with the boyfriend thing instead of saying, hey, you suck, time to go. I've got 3 sisters and he set off all my alarm bells. At this point, I'm stunned. I was wondering who'd bring a date to ladies' night. They'd never even met. He was just a stranger who stepped in to protect her. After this, they chatted a bit and he walked her out. They were back here for their first date today.
Am I wrong for giving my daughter's vegan friend meaty... Sorry. Do it again. Wait. Okay, Bismillah. Am I wrong for giving my daughter's vegan friend meaty meals during sleepovers? My daughter and her friend Em are both 12 years old and like to have sleepovers every now and then. Em's family maintains a strict vegan diet where she isn't even allowed to drink milk. That's what fucking veganism is. Yeah, okay. Her parents are nice people, although a bit on the neurotic side. So whenever she's over, I always make a big meaty meal for them. Last weekend, I made some cheeseburgers and steak for them on the grill with a big glass of milk. Em absolutely loves it and always politely asks for more, which I happily provide. Em is a bright young girl and she's a good friend to my daughter, but I notice how much smaller and paler she is compared to my daughter. I think it's likely tied to her family's diet. Not for you to decide. For snacks, I give them some of my Venetian turkey. For breakfast, I typically make a big plate of scrambled eggs and bacon, again with a big glass of milk. Despite her size, Em always wolfs down whatever I make, and I have to say, every time she leaves, it looks like she has a healthy glow to her. What? I know I probably shouldn't be doing this, but I think Em is a bit malnourished. Nothing against vegans or anything. She knows she'll get in big trouble if she tells her folks. I think she fibs a bit to her parents about what she eats here. So it got me thinking, am I wrong for letting my daughter's vegan friend eat meat at my house? Fam, like, some of these things, like, you can't. I'll give you this. You had good intentions. That's it.
Story time about how I caught my dad doing the dirty with my best friend. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My mom and dad have been married for 30 years. My dad started modeling when he was really young, and he still does it to this day. Every single time that I would bring a friend over to my house, they would always talk about how cute my dad is. It never annoyed me at all because I was so proud of my dad, but it really bothered my mom. So out of respect for my mom, I would just tell my friends not to say anything. My mom is definitely the jealous type. My best friend and I have known each other for about 3 years. She was the new girl at school and we became friends, and ever since then we've been inseparable. She always comes over to my house, we have sleepovers, and my family really likes her. My mom even takes her shopping with us and buys her tons of stuff. She always comes with us to get manicures and pedicures and facials as well. A few years ago, my mom told me that my dad was unfaithful to her, and it really upset me. Basically, my mom couldn't trust him at all. And ever since then, I've kept an eye on him as well. One day I came home early from work. I see my best friend sitting on the couch with my dad. She was kissing his neck. When they saw me, they got up from the couch part. I see my best friend kissing my dad on the neck, and when they both saw me, they jumped off the couch right away. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. My best friend said, "Oh, you're finally home." And my dad literally just walked toward the kitchen like nothing had happened. My best friend walks toward me to give me a hug, but I stop her straight in her tracks. I asked her why she was kissing my dad's neck. She laughs and said, "Of course I wasn't." And then I said, "I just saw it." And she said that she was just thanking him for all the stuff my mom and dad do for her. Right, I was not buying it. My dad didn't even look me in the eyes after that. I decided not to question her any further, but I was really angry with my best friend. After that, I was totally convinced that there was something going on between them. So I decided to set a trap. I told my mom and dad I would be at work all day and that I would be home really late. And I told my best friend the same thing and that I wouldn't be able to hang out with her. I knew that my mom would be at work all day, which meant that my dad had the house all to himself. I said bye to my dad, but I sneaked back into the house and hid in my room all day. Then I started hearing voices. It sounded just like my best friend. I opened my dad's bedroom door and there they are on the bed doing the dirty. Disgusting. Part 3. I walk in on my dad and my best friend doing the dirty. They had no clothes on and they were doing it in my mom's bed. Disclaimer, this is not my story time. It was sent to me on Instagram. Because I am so intelligent, I recorded the whole thing on my phone. My father had the audacity to yell at me and tell me to get out of the room. I said, "No way." Best friend starts dressing herself frantically, begging me for forgiveness. Then my dad tells her to keep her mouth shut. Well, I don't hesitate for 1 second and I send my mom the video that I just recorded. My dad pulls the phone away from me and throws it at the wall. Then he starts trying to negotiate with me. He said, "If you don't tell your mom, I will never do this again, I promise." I told my best friend to go downstairs and wait for me on the couch. My dad starts putting on his clothes, and by the time he's done, my mom is home. Of course, my mom went off on my best friend, telling her how ungrateful she was. She asked my dad for a divorce. A few days later, I get a message from another friend. She tells me that she also did that with my dad. Since then, 4 other women have told me the same thing. They all go to college with me, so none of them are underage, thank God. My dad is begging my mom back, but she doesn't know what to do. We're both just in shock.
Story time on how my boyfriend mom went from hating me to having a threesome with me and her son. Okay, so boom, we are jumping right in. One day I was with my boyfriend and we were on our way to the movies and he got a call from his mom. She told him that he needed to come home immediately because of something important at home. But I knew that every time she did this was because she really just wanted her son to stop hanging out with me because she hated my guts. Like she did not like me and I never knew why. Oh, but one day I figured it out. So one evening on the 1-month anniversary of me and my boyfriend, I was getting ready, doing what girls do, and I kind of expected you know what to happen, so I shaved my hoo-ha. I got all pretty and I headed over to my boyfriend's house. I knock on the door and his mom answers. His mom then tells me that I'm an hour early and he's still getting his haircut, so he's not home. I told her sorry, I must have gotten the times wrong, so I asked her if I can wait right here. She gave me a disgusted look and said whatever and slammed the door. Then she said she's been waiting for this moment, like for part 2. Part 2 on how my boyfriend mom went from hating me to having a threesome with me and her son. Okay, so boom, like I said, she closed the door and told me she's been waiting for this moment. She then says that I'm a fine young lady and she's been waiting to have me alone and that we have 1 hour before her son gets there. At that moment, it hit me. I knew exactly what was going on. And quite frankly, I was happy because his mom is hot. She led me to her room and then we started doing the nasty. By the way, she's 29 and I'm 17. Y'all wouldn't believe what happens next. My boyfriend walked through the door, caught us, but he wasn't shocked. He wasn't even mad. It was more like a jealous thing. Then he joined and we all started doing the nasty. I was literally shocked. I didn't believe what was happening. And this went on for 2 years. But then me and my boyfriend wanted to stop and just focus on each other and not his mom. She didn't like that at all. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how my boyfriend mom went from hating me to having a threesome with me and her son. Okay, so boom, like I said, after 2 years of me and my boyfriend dealing with his mom, we wanted to stop and just focus on each other. And oh, she didn't like that at all. She went right back to treating me horribly and hating my guts. And whenever she had a chance, she kept trying to break me and my boyfriend up. But it never worked. It looks like the only way to make her stop is to dabble back with her, but I'm not interested. Eventually, I'll move out with my boyfriend and we'll be all situated. So if you find out your boyfriend mom hates you, maybe she just wants to be with you.
Story time about how a stranger tried to trick me into joining a swingers club. I woke up late one morning for class and I was in a rush. I threw on a hoodie and some leggings and ran out of the house looking like a mess. When I got to my car, I noticed it was raining outside, but despite this, I was still speeding trying to make it on time. This idea turned out to be as bad as it sounds, and I ended up rear-ending an SUV. I was super broke at the time and didn't have money to pay any sort of deductible. The guy I hit introduced himself as John and made sure that I was okay. To my surprise, he acted like it was no big deal and told me not to worry about the small amount of damage. He immediately got off topic and asked me if I'd be interested in going to a women empowerment seminar that he was hosting. When I politely declined, he told me that he'd only forget about the damage to his SUV if I attended one of the classes. He started ranting about how he's trying to help people and empower women and explained that he's trying to expand his classes. I agreed and he gave me a flyer with the information. I showed up late to a meeting and discovered pretty quickly that it wasn't as innocent as John advertised. Everyone there seemed a bit off, and John was going over various techniques of how to intimately empower women. I also noticed the people I was sitting next to were giving me intimate looks. It only got weirder from here. Part 2 of how a stranger tried to trick me into joining a swingers club. John told me the class was all about empowering women, but this wasn't what I had in mind. I finally got up to leave and John immediately noticed. He saw me in the small audience and told the rest of the class to welcome me and explained how I agreed to attend one session. All eyes were on me at this point, so I decided to sit back down and put the attention back on the instructor. He then continued explaining various methods on how to intimately empower women and couples. Next, he picked two people, a man and a woman, to come up to the front of the class to demonstrate. It was kind of like a train wreck that I didn't want to see, but I couldn't look away. At the end of the class, John led us to another room where full-blown activities were going on, if you know what I mean. That's when it finally hit me that this was some type of swingers club. I immediately slid out from the crowd and headed towards the door. That's when John caught up with me and handed me a flyer for the next event. I went home in disbelief and told my roommate about what just happened. I told her about the car wreck, how I got tricked into going to this crazy class, and about that weirdo John. Her reaction was the exact opposite of what I thought it would be. She told me it sounded cool and asked for the flyer. She ended up going to the next class with her boyfriend and is now a regular with John's group. I have feelings for my coworker, but I'm engaged. I work in the medical field in a busy hospital. It feels like we've been short-staffed forever and it never seems to improve. This leads to us having to work double shifts almost daily. The money's great, but I'm rarely ever home. Sometimes we even sleep at the hospital and don't go home for days at a time. The people I work with are amazing and almost like family. At the moment, I see them more than my actual family. We all look out for each other and we're super close. But some of us might be a little too close. There's this guy I work with named Jason that I've developed feelings for. When you're with someone almost 16 hours a day, I guess it's bound to happen. The problem is that I'm already engaged to my fiance at home. It started out innocent at first. Casual, light flirting here and there, so subtle at times I didn't even think anything of it. One of those situations where you start out as friends, but things keep progressing. I knew my relationship was in jeopardy when Jason and I started texting when we weren't working. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't stop the conversations. If I'm being honest, at times I would be the one to text first and take the conversation away from the friend zone. I haven't talked to my fiance about it and I'm scared to death too. I still love him and feel terrible that I have feelings for someone else, and I haven't even gotten to the worst part of it all. Part 2, I have feelings for my coworker, but I'm engaged. I didn't tell my fiance about Jason because I felt like this was only happening because I was never home. I felt like hardly seeing him had to be the root cause of this mess. I talked to him about making more of an effort to see each other despite my crazy schedule. This worked for a little while, but I still had feelings I couldn't deny for Jason despite trying to suppress them. I even told Jason that we had to keep things strictly professional from now on, to which he agreed. However, this agreement didn't last long. Jason and I were assigned to work in the same area for the next month. One night when we were on break together, he started telling me how much he missed talking to me like we used to. One thing led to another, and we ended up making out in the break room. This was the first time it actually got physical between us, but sadly it wasn't the last. I'm ashamed to say it happened a few more times. At this point, I knew this couldn't keep going on, so I made the decision to break up with my fiance. I quickly found out that this was the wrong choice. Shortly after, I found out that Jason was sleeping with another girl at work. I was crushed and completely cut him off. I realized I made a mistake and tried to reach out to my fiance, but it was too late. I got distracted by what could have been and lost track of something great that I already had. I still regret it to this day.
Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend she basically stole from me when she went grocery shopping using my credit card while I was asleep? I, male 27, have been with my girlfriend, female 24, for 7 months. We don't live together and she has sleepovers at my place regularly. She spent the night at my place and in the morning while I was sleeping, she got up, got dressed, took my credit card and went grocery shopping with it. I woke up to a massive breakfast made by her as a surprise. When I asked her how she got the money and time to prepare all that, she told me she took my credit card while I was asleep, and that she headed to the supermarket to get the stuff she needed to make me a surprise breakfast. I was stunned. I asked why she didn't wake me up before taking my credit card, and she said I was sleeping and she didn't want to bother me, plus this was supposed to be a surprise. I stared and said, I don't know, you realize you technically stole from me when you took my credit card and went shopping with it without my consent, right? She looked shocked and confused and said that she was trying to do something nice for me, and I just implied that she was a thief. I shrugged and said it was technically true. She was so upset that she stormed out of the kitchen and cried. She collected her stuff and left after she told me she spent time and effort to prepare me breakfast and I was out of line. She also said that she had forgot her wallet at home. She kept hanging up when I tried to call her and later sent me money for the stuff she bought, although she didn't take anything with her. My sister called me an ungrateful jerk.
Am I wrong for telling a man he was too old to have a toddler? I, 51 female, recently went on a date with a 54-year-old male. I knew he had 2 kids, but while we were eating, he tells me their ages, 32 female and 3-year-old male. That's a deal breaker to me. At my age with grown kids, 25 and 26, the last thing I want to be bothered with is a man with a toddler and all the potential drama. The mom is 30. I went on with the date because I was having fun. When it was over, I had every intention of letting things just fade away. Yes, I can be passive aggressive. Well, he called a couple of days later wanting to go out again. I tried the whole I'm not ready thing, but he kept trying. Finally, I told him that the fact that he has a toddler is a deal breaker. Too much possible drama, and I'm way too old for that. Hint, hint. He told me I was being hypocritical since I was a single mom. I said a single mom of 2 grown kids. He kept repeating himself, and I kept repeating myself. Finally, I told him that having a baby at 51 shows a stunning lack of judgment that I don't need in my world. He was quiet for a minute, told me that was a messed up thing to say. He told me I should have told him that before he paid for my dinner and that it was a B move, then hung up. So, am I wrong here?
Earlier this year, my friend Taylor moved in with my boyfriend Charlie and me. Taylor and I worked together and became really close friends. I introduced him to my boyfriend, and now the 3 of us have friends. However, I'm closer to Taylor than my boyfriend because Taylor and I have bonded over similar traumatic experiences. The other day, Charlie and I left for a weekend trip. Taylor agreed to take care of our dog while we were away, which we were happy about. Charlie and I have a security camera in our bedroom. This camera is aimed at the bedroom door and bathroom door. We have a bathroom attached to our room. Minutes after we left, we got a notification that there was motion in our room. We checked the cameras and saw Taylor just standing in our room. Over the next 30 minutes, he went in and out of our room about 7 times. It's important to know that up until this point, we have sincerely valued privacy. We never go in his room unless he states it's okay, and vice versa. So we were surprised to see him just walking in on his own. The 8th time he went in our room, we saw him go over to my dresser and dig through my panty drawer. He picked out a pair of panties, pulled on his boxers and pants, put my panties on, and then his boxers and pants back on over it. A few minutes later, he returned wearing one of my tank tops when he noticed the camera. He slowly backed out of the room, but then he returned later and continued digging through my panty drawer. He returned multiple times later to dig through my panties. All of this recorded and saved on video. Seeing how he invaded our privacy and wore my underwear made me feel sick and needs to be addressed. We don't want to make Taylor feel ashamed for cross-dressing, but what he did to my clothing was disgusting. I know as soon as we get back home, I'm going to throw away all my underwear and Charlie's going to install a deadbolt to our bedroom door. We don't feel comfortable confronting him about it until we return home and are able to deadbolt the door. Would I be the asshole if I made him pay to replace all my underwear and pay for the hardware for our bedroom deadbolt? Taylor also went in my nightstand to look at and handle my adult toys, and he dug through my hamper to presumably look for used underwear. When we confronted him, Taylor denied everything. Despite the fact that we had it all on video, he tried to make up different reasons why he was there, tried to downplay it, said he only came to look around, and then said he doesn't even remember entering our room. We told him he could either move out, go to therapy, or we could move out and he would have to find new roommates. He basically told us no. He said we had no authority to kick him out and that blackmailing him with the videos was illegal. Unfortunately, he was on our lease, so there wasn't much we could do without taking legal action. So we got to work. We started looking for a new place to live, started looking for a lawyer, filed a police report, and made plans to file for a restraining order. But every single day I was constantly anxious at work and fearful in my own home because it was clear that he had absolutely no remorse. After about a week with no sleep and constant fear, I finally spoke to my boss about the situation. My concerns were taken seriously and they immediately began taking steps to help me. I showed them the videos and they agreed that his actions were completely unacceptable and, due to the nature of our work, he's considered a liability and a danger to other employees. They made sure I was in a safe place before they suspended him while they investigated him. During his suspension, I met with my bosses where they continued to support me and ensure my safety. They also made plans to terminate him as he also had multiple negative performance reports. So this whole deal was a nail in his coffin. However, Taylor quit before they had the chance to fire him. The day after he quit, he got all of his crap out of the apartment and signed documents removing himself from the lease. He has not attempted to contact me since. This whole situation has been extremely emotionally draining. It has caused a lot of painful memories and emotions to resurface. Looking back on our friendship now, I can recall multiple red flags in which he crossed clear personal boundaries I set. I can't believe he was ever someone I trusted and loved like a big brother. But for now, he's out of our lives and I'm relieved. I'm still living with my parents, but I plan on moving back as soon as the apartment locks get changed.
Am I the asshole for telling my mom I'm not paying $100 for Thanksgiving dinner? I, 16 male, got a job at Taco Bell. I got the job because I wanted to save up some money to go to college overseas. And I wanted to help my single mother out with some things. Pretty soon though, I found a big chunk of my payments going towards helping my mother out with some things. It was here where I said I was going to cut back on some things and continue saving my money for my own desires. This Thanksgiving, my mom is asking me for $100 to pay for my part of the Thanksgiving dinner. I said no, stating my personal desires. She got angry at me and told me I shouldn't have a job if I wasn't going to help her pay for Thanksgiving dinner. I got angry and left the room. I already spent a lot of money helping out with some things and I realized if I continue I'd have nothing for my personal desires. Am I the asshole for quitting on the spot even though we were understaffed and it made my manager cry? I worked at a retail store in the mall. The The store is divided into men's, women's, and children's clothes. I always worked women's, and on the weekdays, I was the only employee in that entire section. Yesterday, myself and 2 other employees clocked into our shifts. My manager, Lisa, pulled me aside and told me, "Your dad's called the store 5 times asking for your schedule. Please tell him to stop." I got extremely confused because that didn't sound like something my dad would do. I texted him and he said he never called the store once. I had a bad feeling and asked Lisa if she gave my dad my schedule, and she said she did. Said that wasn't my dad and she had no right telling a strange man my schedule. She said I was being dramatic and I quit on the spot. She apologized and even cried.
Story time! Okay, so this happened when I was in 5th grade. So it was towards the end of the school year and I had this best friend. We'll call my best friend Becca. So I want to say that me and Becca were literally living the best friend dream. We had all of the same classes except for like 1 or 2. We had the same bus stops, the same friends, and we were even neighbors. And to me, she was basically my sister. So one thing to know is that me and Becca both lived in a trailer park. And this one specific day, me and Becca went to go visit her sister. Her sister lived a few minutes away from us, and me and Becca lived in the same road, so we could walk back home together. So then after we were done visiting her sister, we began walking back home. And one thing to know is that I had lived there for 2 years, and Becca has lived there her entire life, so we knew this trailer park by heart. So as we're walking, we're laughing and we're joking around, and we were about halfway through the park when I noticed that there was a van. Yes, a white van. That's when we also noticed that the person driving the van was a man. We ignored it and thought nothing about the guy or the van. But the thing was, we could tell that he didn't know where he was going. Okay, so we seen the man in the white van, and we continued walking and just tried to ignore it. But the only thing was that we could tell that he didn't know his way through the park. The reason we could tell that he didn't know his way through the park was because he was driving the wrong way. So like I said before, we just tried to ignore it and kept laughing and walking. As we were walking, I see the guy park the van and he gets out. And after he got out the van, he started walking towards me and Becca. He then says, "Hey girls, do you want some candy?" And Becca was like, "No, we don't want any of your candy." We then flipped him off and started running because we knew what he was trying to do. He then started chasing us, and the worst part was that it was already dark out. We finally get to my house and we jump over my gate. We walk inside and I told my mom that she needed to call 911 because the man just tried to kidnap us. My mom thought I was joking and I told her I wasn't. She could see the panic on our faces, and that's when she called 911. When the police arrived, the van was gone. I ended up telling the police that I saw him run into the fields where we live by. After I told the police that, they went to go look, but there was nothing they could do about it since he was nowhere to be found. And ever since that day, both me and Becca make sure that we're back home before dark.
Am I the asshole for throwing water on a kid who kept doing ding dong ditch? Due to job opportunities, we recently moved into a new neighborhood. While most things were going fairly smoothly, we'd at around 4 p.m. hear a couple of knocks at our door. When we went to see what it was, to our surprise, there wasn't anybody there. It was only a couple weeks later that we thought there could be a possibility of someone doing ding dong ditch. We just never really thought of it, as everyone here seemed really relaxed, so ding dong ditch never crossed our minds. As to not resort to any extreme measures, we put up a sign near the door. It read, "Please do not trouble the people inside by doing these silly pranks," which didn't work. We decided to ask people in the neighborhood about it. They said it was a tradition for the kids in the neighborhood to do this to new people in the area. This kind of irked me, as ding dong ditch is really annoying, so I set up a camera inside our house to capture who was outside. After reviewing the footage multiple times, I was able to confirm that it was some brat who was a couple meters away. I went to speak to his parents, but they laughed it off, saying that kids will be kids, so I decided that I myself would do something about it. After 3 days, the kid came back, but I was hiding behind an unlocked door with a large water bucket. As soon as he knocked and turned, I opened the door and splashed him with water. I thought that was that, but the parents came over not even 10 minutes later, demanding to know why I soaked their kid in water. I tried to justify my reasoning, but to no avail. I'm conflicted because I think what I did was pretty petty. Am I the asshole for kicking my husband out of my parents' house after how he reacted to my sister's pregnancy announcement? First thing I'm going to say is my sister is my best friend and supporter, and I have so much love and respect for her. My husband, 33, developed a compulsive urge to tell jokes and funny stories. He literally laughs in people's faces whenever he gets the chance to act funny, though he never finds others' jokes funny and gets offended by any attempts to get him to laugh. More importantly, he's been blind since he was 11. You don't want to hear how it happened, but all I'll say is that he's had a rough childhood and it's impacted his adulthood. We're at my parents' house when my family gathered, as my sister requested to make an announcement. We were all sitting when my sister announced that she's expecting. Everyone congratulated her, and my husband said, "So who's the daddy?" The room went quiet except for my cousin's husband, who laughed. I could go ahead and start making guesses, but I'm not going to say names now, am I? Things will then get really awkward in here, followed by an awkward laugh. Everyone was flabbergasted and I was very upset. My sister excused herself out and family watched as I yelled at my husband and told him he was out of his mind to make an awful comment. He said he was messing with her and it was no big deal, but I told him to get out. My sister left and I tried to call her as my husband waited outside for someone to come pick him up. My parents told me to let him back in because it was cold outside, but he left anyway. His brother called and berated me for putting him out like a dog. My younger sister told me my husband might not have actually been joking and told me to think about what he said.
Am I wrong for sending the police to my stepsister's wedding? I, 32 female, lost my mom when I was 23. It was by far the most traumatic loss I experienced. It was unfair, untimely, and preventable. I got in therapy and was doing better, but I had issues with my dad's new wife and her daughter, who's 25 and just got married weeks ago. We do not have a close relationship, but we were cordial enough to sit at dinner tables. My stepsister treats me as a relative and was as much distant from me. But after my father got sick, we had to see each other a lot. I'm handling his care while stepmom works full-time, and stepsister doesn't do much, though she's always visiting when I moved in to help my dad. I brought with me all of my mom's belongings, and my stepsister showed interest in my mom's necklace and asked if she could borrow it to wear it at her wedding. I refused, and she tried every method to convince me, and I had to put it in a place where I thought it'd be safe after my stepmother got involved. As the wedding approached, they both kept convincing me to let my stepsister have it. She bragged about affording a better one, but it was a matter of showing who's in control. I stood my ground and told them how serious I was, so they backed off. I didn't attend the wedding to stay with my dad. I remember wanting to change where I was hiding the necklace while the house was empty, but I found it was gone. After searching for hours, I called my stepmom, and she said not to worry, my stepsister took it and will return it when the wedding is over, but it was clear that I won't see it till after the honeymoon since she and her daughter was staying at the hotel. I screamed at her to return it, but she argued about not wanting to leave the guests and the wedding already started. I told her I'd get it myself, but she forbid me from coming, saying she'd have to keep me out from wanting to make a scene. I called the police and explained to them what was happening. I informed them my stepsister intended to leave for her honeymoon with my property. The police were sent to where the wedding was being held, and they were able to retrieve the necklace from my stepsister. My stepmom returned home and kept shouting at me, calling me petty and crazy to send the police to my stepsister's wedding, ruining it and humiliating them over a piece of jewelry. She was screaming at my sick dad, telling him to handle me after the stunt that I pulled at the wedding. I defended myself, saying I only wanted an item that belonged to me that they took without my permission returned. She argued further that I could have waited to get it back, but I chose to burn the bridge with my stepsister and said that she considers me dead after this. She said stuff I can't mention, but here's all I can say: it was a bad night. I might have overreacted by getting the police involved, but I had no guarantee of getting the necklace back since I have experience with them in the past. So, was I wrong here? My boyfriend has a longtime female friend who's clearly into him, and I don't know what to do. This is gonna sound like the typical insecure girlfriend, but I promise it's not like that. My boyfriend and I have been together for over 6 months, and he's really great. He has a friend that he's had for years who is a girl. Normally, I'm not the type to be all like, you're not allowed to hang out with a single girl alone, but I'm considering telling my boyfriend that he's not allowed to hang out with this girl alone. This girl is obviously so into him, and she definitely wants me to know she's coming for him. She keeps saying stuff like, you don't know him like I do yet. Or, we used to go to that place together all the time long before you guys started dating. She also had cute pet names for him, and I didn't like it, and as soon as I heard it, I told my boyfriend I didn't like it, and he made her stop. Oh my gosh, Josh, remember when we went on a hike, just the two of us? That was the best day. I asked her straight up if she was into him, and her response pissed me off. she was like, I know it's intimidating how close he and I are, but don't worry, you're the girlfriend, I'm just a friend, right? With a smug smile on her face. I got so mad, but I couldn't talk to my boyfriend about it. I want to tell him to cut her out of his life so bad, but I don't know if I can do that. My boyfriend's dad passed away 2 years ago with a heart condition. He told me that his dad was his best friend growing up, so it hit him really hard. That's why he says she's like a sister to him. That's why I don't know what to do. I already asked him to set boundaries, like she can't text late at night or come over to his place unannounced all the time and not interrupting our alone time. He was the only family my boyfriend had. Apparently, this girl really helped him get through it. She apparently was there for him throughout the whole thing. My boyfriend doesn't realize that she's into him, and I kind of don't blame him on that because all of her flirts are subtle enough that he doesn't realize, but enough to get me riled up. I know my boyfriend isn't into her at all, and he's completely friend-zoned her, but it's still so frustrating. I hate to admit it, but she's so good at getting under my skin, and I don't know what to do. I really need some advice.